Yo, I can hear you, Bernard.
Okay.
Hold on. Oh, that's because you're in Clubhouse. Let's see. I think I just hit start the show, um, which I didn't mean to do, and I can't see you. So people can hear me right now, if anyone's watching. Luckily, no one's watching yet, but hold on. I can't see where to let you in. And that's what I was worried about, that it wouldn't show me a way to let you in from the phone. Oh, there you are. Okay.
All
There
right.
you go. All right.
Also, we should do a new room because the replays are off.
Okay. You want to set that up? I only have 15% on there too. Oh, you know what else it says? If you start the club, only club members can come in. We should just do a regular room because we don't really have enough members yet, right?
I mean, you should be able to open it up to.
Well, I'll let you do it. I'll let you try it. Maybe I just don't have the skill.
All right.
The only thing that's shaky for me, other than the fact I don't have much battery life on the Clubhouse, is it's a little harder to hear in there because I got the headphones on to hear you over here. But I can hear if I just crank the volume. But as long as there's no delay, we should be pretty good.
All
And
right.
hey, everybody checking us out. If that's anybody checking us out right now, we were getting our Clubhouse set for episode 13. I'm at the pool, as you can tell. Bernard, I believe you are not at the pool. Is that correct? Can you confirm that you are not at the pool?
That is correct.
There we go. Bernard is officially not at the pool. One, two, 1, 2. We're about to get started. It didn't like me using the Bluetooth headphones, though. I think it just shut my headphones off on the restream. Which might make this a challenge, but we'll see.
All right. Today at 6:15. So I mean, can you hear me still?
Yeah. We're about to get rolling. People got the backstage pass right now. You're all seeing backstage. They're like, it's not 6:30. How'd you go live ahead of time? You know, all access passes is what everyone has today.
All right, room 615, episode 13. Replays on. All right, Clubhouse is now up and rolling.
And I am changing Facebook so that it's public. So it's there. So we are live on Clubhouse. I mean on Facebook, which means we're live everywhere. All right.
All right.
I got to jump in. Let me see if I can find you over here on Clubhouse.
Check. All right.
1 2 1 2 1 2. I'm gonna have to do the old pause when I speak over on Clubhouse. I think might help a little bit with feedback.
All right. You kind of frozen on my screen, but I guess that's what it. I don't know if that's how it is on Facebook.
Let me get back to it. I think that might be something I can fix. Hold on there. Give me 1 sec.
From Clubhouse replay, we are Pro Lyricals at the pool, so we're getting the streams to the.
Yes. I hope that I'm not frozen. What's up, Tree? Am I good now?
Let me look. Yep.
Yep, meaning I'm good.
Hold on. What is? I'm getting this. I think you are. Yeah, you're
Live.
You're live now.
Cool.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. Introverse. Gina's here as usual. She's cleaning her kitchen. I think she was doing that last week too.
Nothing wrong with that. You should clean your kitchen while you check us out. Clean out your kitchen while you check us out. Nothing wrong with that.
All right. So today's topic is we're doing a redefine. Redefine is where we take words or phrases that are used commonly and we're redefining them for the introvert because a lot of words have been used against the introvert. So as wordsmith people, that's the power we have, is to take those words, jujitsu power that's coming towards us. We just divert that energy back to you to say, nah, this is actually what you were trying to say. So before I say my thing, I could start off, but what do you think of the topic, Pro? What do you think this phrase means? To drag it out of you. And have you ever had that used on you before?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Especially when I'm at a party situation, like, or it's usually said like, oh, I just had to drag it out of you just to even get you to expand so that you didn't seem like you just didn't want to talk, or, like usually in that light. And again, it's usually early. I think I know where you're going with this a little bit more, but I actually don't mind it tremendously because for me it's like a verbal cue reminding me that I'm being short. So with people that I trust saying it. Now it's different if someone just says that, like, oh, I had to drag it out, whatever, or anything like that. Like, this is what I usually get. It's like pulling teeth trying to get you to speak. Right. Like looking at you, like trying to get, but now I'm aware of it, and so, again, you live, you learn, you go through it. But yeah, I definitely have that. So I think, I don't want to take too much from what you're saying, but I think where you're looking at it from is like, there's different communication rules, not just one, and there's different ways to be, I don't know if effective is the right word, but different ways to get it done.
Right. While we're talking about this, I don't know if you can change it on the screen, but right now we got the public speaking myth on the screen. Episode 8 and Introverse 13 both say so our audience knows we're not doing public speaking. We did that episode already. We're doing the Redefine. I had to drag it out of you. So okay, so this is my thing, because I recently just had heard somebody say this, and I can think of 3 specific conversations where it was said, and I'm sure it's been used more than that. But there's been times where I've had a conversation with someone, and then later they said, "Yeah, I said this, and you didn't say anything, so I had to drag it out of you." And every time they say that, I just, it makes me livid because to me, what I hear is, I'm such a good communicator and so verbal, and I had to assist you to bring out of you, out of your mind and out of your mouth, a thing you couldn't say. It was sitting in there and you didn't say it or couldn't say it, and you weren't going to say it, so I had to do it for you. And it's so condescending, it's so disrespectful because they're speaking without any kind of self-awareness. They're basically saying, when I was speaking, I was waiting for you to respond with a certain amount of expediency and you didn't, so I had to drag it out of you. And it's like, no, you're just being selfish. You're basically saying, I had an expectation for you to respond in this amount of time with this amount of words and you didn't, so I had to do it. And it's like, no, you just did it. You didn't have to do it, you just decided to do it. So there was no dragging out of me. There was you taking the quote unquote initiative to do the thing that poor introvert couldn't do.
Poor introvert indeed. Yeah. Let me say it like this. If I'm in a situation where I know I'm not the best communicator, I have no problem letting other people also do the bulk of the talking. Like, meaning, if I don't have something in my head that's ready to come out, which again, this stage of my life I'm a little better at, but I especially, speaking from earlier, I'd be happy to let other people take the lead and do the talking, and I think sometimes it can appear that maybe because not even the communication, even the listening style, I mean, which is part of communication, but like my entrance into a conversation usually starts with listening. And
Right.
I just don't like when that's taken for like, oh, you're not being interactive or you're not being social or whatever, because, and I think this is more to your point, because my way of being social is understanding what we're talking about first before I know where I can lend something to that conversation. A lot of times there's conversations I don't understand early on, and I'll just let them develop. And I don't feel the burden naturally to have to be in the conversation. It's funny, like I jumped at a Clubhouse room earlier today, and it's probably on my replays. It was about TED Talks, which we both have some experience with. And so I said, oh, let me check out the TED Talk. Immediately when I went in the room, the lady brought me up. She's like, oh, let me bring you up. Bro, what is the TED Talk that you're thinking of doing? And I had to explain, like, where I've done them before. I don't really have a topic in mind. That's not really why I came in the room. I came in the room to listen. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then you're forced into, it's like, oh, here's someone to interact with. And I get it because there weren't really many people in the room, and certainly understand that. It's kind of opposite of our rooms. Like we do our room and we're just kind of, fine with nobody being in the room. I mean, I know, and again, I know the pressure to do that. I'm like, oh, we gotta make it a little more interactive, I suppose. Like let's get some people in the room, I suppose, right? But at the same time, it was mirroring what happens in public situations. I'm just listening to you speak. Like my being social is listening. Like like I said, for me, I like to go to documentaries. I like to go to movies. I like to hear someone else do talking. I like to listen to audiobooks, and if I can, I'd prefer to just read if I have the time and concentration. But so often I'm in a car or something like that, and don't have the setup really to making read effect. I don't like reading in a car when it's moving too much, and it's funny, I can do it on a train, but it's like the ways, what I'm getting at for me, that I'm going to communicate first is by hearing the idea, and so I don't feel compelled to jump in unless I have expertise on the subject. But I don't want to hijack the entire conversation either, because what I could lend to even the TED Talk, I could feel myself doing it, is that I have a certain knowledge area that's maybe different from what she even wanted to talk about. So And that's why I like seeing what people can add. And then if I want to put a different slant on and I can tell it's time for the different slant, I'll do it. But that's not because it needs to be pulled out of me. It's just because I'm waiting to see what we're talking about before I just decide that I need to be on the stage, so to speak. Yeah.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
it's a way that I think about it.
Yeah, I think like to go back to the condescending idea, I think it's very arrogant for someone to say like you were just unable to like formulate the ideas, or you like you don't have thoughts in your head, or you're either you're inadequate, or you something prevented you from being able to have something to say back to me, so I got to pull it out of you. So I think it's a very arrogant point of view.
It's that I was listening, right? I'm listening. That's not the case, right?
Right. It's very arrogant to kind of be like, oh, this poor person, I was saying something to them, and then I just realized they didn't say anything back. So I had to go, like I had to literally crawl into their mouth, travel down their esophagus, find some words, drag it, pull it up to the surface, and like, there we go. There you go. Oh, that isn't that better? And I'm just like, number one, leave. Like number one, leave. Number two, I think okay, so to what we're talking about, number two, it goes to what we're saying. There's no one way to communicate. So as you're saying, someone is talking, you're listening, and you probably are piecing together thoughts, or the thoughts that are forming, maybe it's not interesting enough yet for you to want to say something. And I've been there where it's like, okay, this person's talking, I hear what you're saying. But at the moment, I'm just like, I could talk, but I'm just gonna fill up the air with saying like, yes, that's interesting or cool, but I'm not really gonna like contribute back to you
Right.
something that I feel is adding value to what you're saying. So I think what those people are usually looking for is like the connection piece only. They're like, we're talking to simply connect. So they're looking for something to like latch onto, like say some words so that I know that you hear me and that we're on the same wavelength. And I'm just like, I'm not really here to do that. Like I'm not really here just to connect with you in that sense. Like you said, the person in the room, like if you're gonna, bring up a topic, I was like, yeah, let's talk about a topic. But simply just words for words sake, I don't know what to do with that. That's why I can't and don't do the small talk.
Yeah, I mean, another thing that comes to mind, and this isn't small talk per se. I'll call this big talk. And sorry, I have my Clubhouse mic muted. This isn't small talk for me. This is big talk. Like the way that I'm thinking about it is that when I go into a situation where there are people that have or have made themselves have an established role in the communication, like let's say this happens all the times in academic circles. I'll be in a room. I was in a workshop recently. We all know each other's resume, right? So we're looking around like, okay, this is one gentleman we needed in the room because he's like the leader of this one part we're doing. He's not there, and it's like almost the whole thing falls apart if he's not there. And we just know, we default to him. He comes in and he just talks, so we all just wait until he's very clear at like, we all know what we do well, So
Right.
let's say it's like linear algebra working on matrices or something. It might turn to me, right? And it's almost as if everyone kind of turns to you because you know your area. Those are really comfortable conversations to have when you kind of know that, okay, everyone's going to kind of turn to you, whatever. For me, I like that. I like a well-defined,
Right.
kind of conversation, whatever. I actually flourish in those situations, It's when it's that what we call awkward silence, right? It's only awkward because no one really knows their role, and everyone's sort of, competing to talk. But I'm not competing when I don't know my role. Like I'm quiet. I'm just like, okay, this isn't my area, Like
Right.
when he comes in, I'm waiting on him. Like it's not awkward. I'm actually happy. It doesn't need to be any talking in the room for me to be excited about it. I'm happy. Not, it's not my time. I don't need to say anything. I'm waiting on him. And he does his thing, and then if it's kind of like without saying it, they'd be like, Dr. Plord, what are your thoughts on blah blah blah? Yeah, I kind of know. We all know, and then we're like, okay, here, I'm going to chime in now because you need me now, as opposed to I need you in the conversation. Like I don't need you to talk. You know, like if you need me to say something, then I'll come in. Otherwise, I'm cool in the de facto, like listen to everybody else. You know, because I don't know about you, but like I'm in a conversation, I'm a taker. Like I want to take from you. I want to learn from you. You know, while I'm there.
Right.
It's partly that, you know, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room kind of philosophy. It's like
Right.
I'm good with being the dummy in the room, you know, and and that isn't the room that I probably need to say too much. But I can feel when a room is relying on you. I can feel when, and I'm good with that as long as I know the subject matter. But I'm not going to make
Right.
it up, you know. When we talk
Right.
about something I don't know, I'm like, I'm really good with saying I have no idea what you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? And then it gives me time to just sit and listen again. I like what I think this is true with you too. Um, I I know I'm a creative. I also know I can create fast on the spot. And once I start to understand what the rules are and what we're playing with, oh yeah, now I can start popping it off and I can start thinking, and I'll contribute when it feels like I'm being creative if you've given me the license to do so. But I don't want to make stuff up and be creative in a room that isn't calling for creativity. If you're calling for knowledge and I don't have it, I'm going to be pretty quiet about that. Obviously, look, I don't know, but you know, I can come up with some ideas, but you know,
Right.
I'm not spitballing for the sake of spitballing, I guess is what I'm saying, you know. But when it's that time and you need me to, great. Like I feel like if we're all collectively on a boat and we need to survive, I'm gonna get really creative. You know, like if it's like, oh, we're losing water, yeah, my brain's gonna be in overdrive. I'm like, okay, I'm needed. Here I go. It's time to kick it in. But if we're just sitting there and we're all chilling on the boat and it's sailing and
Right.
everything's going good, I'm comfortable sailing. You know what I mean?
Well, okay, so I said in the description that we talk about some strategies. I couldn't fit in the clubhouse description. It was telling me too many characters. But okay, so to the point you just made, here's one strategy I came up with. Maybe it's not so much a strategy as it is like a reframing how you look at the world. So I guess it's a big picture strategy. So around like 2012, I was attending these meetings for this big festival we have here in town. And I started noticing, like, I go to these meetings and they have a room full of people, like 20 people, and they were trying to come up with ideas for the festival. And I was like, well, yeah, like you're saying, I could do this all day. Like, I'm creative. Boom. Yeah, well, let's do it. Like, it's like a cipher. It's like, I'll give you 10 million ideas. Um, but also I already had ideas like prepared, like, okay, let's do this, let's do this. Like, I'm ready to go. Like, I'm ready to come to the meeting and be like, here's the ideas we could do. Who's ready to put them into action? Because I'm just a visionary, or not just a visionary, but I am the visionary, and I want you all to go move with the ideas. So then what I started doing was I was like, you know what? I'm not coming to any more meetings with any more than like 4 people. Like, I just started doing that because I was like, I can't stand being in a room where everybody just wants to like spitball. I was like, I've already done this. Like, I've already compiled the ideas. I'm ready for the next step. But it seems like some people need that group sounding board experience so they can hear their ideas. And I was like, that's not me. And so I just said, okay, I just decided that a rule for me, a strategy for me is I will no longer go to these large meetings because I'm going to be frustrated and it's not going to be productive because the people don't have their, they don't have their ideas organized yet. So to save myself sanity, I mean, it's difficult because I mean, there's people, they want to have these big meetings sometimes. And I can't remember if I started telling people this. I can't remember if I would say like, hey, how many people are going to be there? But that's like my thing now. Just like on purpose, decide which meetings you want to go to. And if it's more than 4 or more than 6, just be like, no thanks. Because I already see where this is going.
You gotta have the limit. I mean, if you have the license to do that, great. You know, but if you don't have the ability to do that at your, whether it's, normally it's our place of work, we may not have the ability to do that. It's like assumed you're coming. You get those required Outlook messages, like the calendar message comes through. It's like required. It's like, I guess
Well,
it depends what
the
level.
good news was I was working in the arts in school, so they didn't really care, Oh yeah, you like those guys. Sure, I guess.
Yeah, I know. I have people who do that when we do like and I'm the sometimes the bad guy because I'm the faculty development person as well, and people need a break or they need to check out or they've heard this. It isn't for them, like you do these one size fits all kind of PD sessions. And it's not so much that they have a number like a 4 limit, it's like this is the one what we're doing for the semester that everyone has to come to. Some of the senior faculty would just check out. They'd be like, yep, I've been there, done that. There's nothing of value here for me. I don't take that personally, but we have a policy where you're not supposed to do that. There's no real penalty. Someone might get a talking to or something, but there's no, real penalty. But a lot of stuff, most meetings included, we just default to who needs to be there just because they're part of that team or whatever. Not always with regard to do they need to be at that specific meeting, and do they need to be at the whole thing. Like I love to run a meeting and be like, look, here's the 7 people we need to be at the meeting, which is a lot. Here's the 7 people we need. And by the way, you guys only need to be at the first 15 minutes. If you want to stay cool, you can do so. And here's what we're going to need at the end. That's why agendas are nice. Like the agenda isn't so much so you can prepare about the topic. I think it's prepared again. What I was talking about, maybe this is my default, when I'm going to be needed. Like what's the topics help that, but it's not like I need this well-defined kind of master overview of what's happening. It's just going to say right here, boom. And if that's your area, that you need to be there, just to kind of give you a heads up. I don't like having agendas that are too specific, but at the same time, I don't want people to feel like they got to stay for the whole hour meeting. Like an hour is valuable, so I think maybe you'd be more inclined to stay at a meeting too, if you, as opposed to voluntarily checking out on one. If you knew they were only going to be 15 minutes of your time, and if it's a physical meeting and you happen to be there anyways, then you can just kind of check out. But we don't do that often. We just put everyone in the room, and it's assume everyone's staying the whole time, and people are leaving, and then it adds to this problem that we're talking about, where the people are quote unquote checked out, or they had to drag it out of you or whatever. Yeah, it's because you're making me sit here for an hour for something I don't need to be at. It's probably not going to help my attitude going into it. And you're already thinking this isn't going to be that great. So you might not want to be too participatory anyways, because you don't want to lengthen the meeting. You know what I'm saying? Like, I will not talk if I know that I'm going to be the person lengthening the meeting, and it's something I could have asked someone offline,
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before, developing the perfect position for the introvert, like facilitator, where they should be in the workplace. I forgot what we called it. You have to go back and stream our earlier episodes. But the thing I'm thinking about is, okay, so your point about being in a meeting and being a listener, that's like the micro. I think the macro is, over the course of our lives, introverts, we listen a lot. So we've gathered information so that when it is time to produce a TED Talk or etc., it's like, okay, I've listened enough to be able to have enough material to deliver this thing right now, right? So in the micro scale, that's where it's like, how come you don't talk? It's like, well, there's nothing to really be said right now. But in like the macro, it's like, oh, I always got something to say. Like, I got a book, I got a CD, I got poetry. Like, I'm always ready to talk. You got to meet me in my context, which is the macro scale. So thinking about that, whenever I'm in those micro meetings with the macro mindset, I'm literally sitting there like, this could have been solved like yesterday. Like, this could have been solved last. I'm literally just going through all the things that people are saying. I'm like, this has already been answered. I'm just like, what are you talking? Like, why are we bringing up something that is so logical to figure out? Okay, so I'll give you an example. I mean, this is not exactly an example. I was at this art meeting one time, which was cool.
I have one for you too for this exact same topic.
So I was at this art gathering retreat. Person who gathered it, who I know, he called a bunch of artists together. We did some icebreakers, we did some stuff. And so at the end, what always happens is like everybody tries to like kind of like let's all collaborate. And I was like, like I already see where this is gonna go. Like nobody's gonna do this. And so I wasn't trying to be a jerk, but I think it might have came off a little bit. But he was like, okay, guys, so let's all kind of like try to like after this meeting commit to seeing each other's work or something like that. And I was just like, hey, like I see, I know what you're saying, but I was like, let's be honest, like I'm probably really not gonna do it. Like I was like, I'm probably not gonna follow up with this person. I'm being honest, like it just feels too forced. And then he kept saying stuff, and I kept raising my hand, and like I seriously was just like voicing like I want this to be successful, so I'm telling you this is probably not gonna happen. What you're doing, and I said, what if we all pick somebody who we were like genuinely interested in getting to know, and just like say, hey, let's meet up and do a thing. And I did that. This person who I already worked with, she worked with an organization that I work with. I said, hey, let's meet up and talk about art and stuff. And we did it. Like, we didn't necessarily go back and forth to each other's shows and artwork, but we met up. So one person said to me at the end, he's like, Bernard, you had some real clear-headed thinking. He's like, I think you said some real clear-headed things that was just, because I think he got it. He was like, yeah, I'm probably not going to go see these people. Like, as much as we want to see each other's stuff, we're working on our own stuff, right? Like, as much as like I should go see pro shows, like I'm probably not, because I'm be over here working on my beats. Pro, like, Bernard, I'll check you out. Maybe, probably not though. So I think if you're the introvert and you have this macro picture of the meeting now, before the meeting, after the meeting, that's where you're the strongest, like the big picture. So when you're in the middle of that meeting, that's when you usually feel the weakest, because you're just like, I can't help you all right now with the problem right now that you're trying to fix right now. Like I told you last week, or in a week, I'm going to tell you again, this is what we need to do. But if you guys don't take into account the introverted big picture point of view, like these problems are just going to keep going in circles, because we're never going to be heard in a way that's going to fix the big structural problems that we keep bringing up.
Wow. The turn Clubhouse back on. It made me think of when you said this too, and this is where I knew you were going to kind of an area that I think about too. When you say like this is so obvious, like I think of just yesterday. I was in New Orleans. We're about to perform at a conference, and it was like half performances, half conference, right? And it was great. We were in a music sync room, but the people before us were talking about sort of the basics of business. It was like business stuff, like music business 101, and then it was my performance and Fly from my label. We performed, and then it went into sync. And I was there for the sync stuff. I was excited. I was like, oh, it's gonna be sync right after us. This is great. And the problem was the people before us. This lady goes, I'm going to teach you all about a SWOT analysis. And I just like rolling my eyes, like, like really, like you're going to teach me about, first of all, the presumptive nature of the fact that I wouldn't know what a SWOT analysis is, right? And it's like, let me not be presumptive because I have no idea who's listening. But if you haven't heard, SWOT analysis is just an acronym for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, right? And it's like, that's a nice recap, I suppose. But when in the world have you ever made a decision that's important in any kind of part of your life where you haven't thought about, hey, do I have expertise, like AKA strength in this area? Is there something I'm not proficient in this so that I probably shouldn't try doing this? Is there an opportunity or is there not? Like, why would you do something if there's no opportunity, right? And like, is there a threat, something that could stop you? When don't you do that? So whenever I hear these kind of things that go on in the conversation, like someone's going to come in and teach me about something that I think is almost, I almost think it's an insult to even call it street smart. It's just duh, right? And I'm like, oh, and I start rolling my eyes whenever it's going to be like something that I feel. A lot of times leadership is one of those buzzwords that bugs the heck out of me. I'm like, oh, you're going to teach me about leadership. Okay, what concrete thing are you actually going to tell me about the ultra vague leadership, right? And like, I've had graduate courses. I have courses for my doctorate in leadership, and it's the same thing. I'm like, there's no definitive stuff that gets done in a leadership course. It's like, be charismatic, right? It's like, what's your leadership style? And then what? I'm always like, and what? It's makes me think of like SWOT analysis. It's like, okay, so you're paying, or you're getting paid, or I'm paying you to tell me stuff that we already know. There's no aha moment, and I completely shut down in these scenarios. So that is when it's like having to drag it out of me or pull teeth out of me, because I've already decided when you've come with that's going to be your nugget. And I'm like, there's no nugget here. Or when you go in Clubhouse and they're like, we're going to add value. It's like, no, you're not. You're not adding any value. You're telling me stuff that's so ridiculous that it's like, when I see these titles like leadership, or my favorite one in Clubhouse is rich people do this. And I'm like, yes, this is exactly what rich people do. They make a post about being rich and tell you what rich people do and how you're not adequate enough to understand, you know? And it's, I guess what I'm saying is a lot of the setup for me is what can take me out of the conversation before I begin. And that's part of why we're introverts. It's like, it's a value judgment. It is a SWOT analysis, if you will. I've determined there's no opportunity, right? There's no, there's no thing of value which I'm going to gain from being at your social event, you know, in many cases, because there's nothing like I'm looking for out of that, right? I'd
Right.
rather go home and work on my own weakness, which is I don't have this particular cadence down, or I need to make this beat better so I can do this track, right? Like I'm doing the SWOT analysis, right? Like, and
Right.
I know what my strength is, and it's hip hop, it's rapping, so I want to go home and do it. And my weakness is the track isn't filled out, and the opportunity is when it's dope, it can maybe get placed in a movie. And the threat is that someone else is at home working harder than me, so I don't want to be at your thing. You know what I'm saying? You know, don't call that anti-social. Just call that a SWOT analysis, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when I'm in most meetings, my thought is I don't need to be here. Like, or I already know this, or I don't want to know this. And some people are like, oh, that's arrogant.
Absolutely, that's the other one. I don't want to know this.
I mean, and I think people think that's like arrogant. And it's like, well, I guess it could be arrogant, but it's also there's a part of which is like it's true. Like a lot of times when I'm in meetings, like you're saying, people are going over stuff like, okay, guys, so like when we interact with students, we want to engage them and make them feel well. I'm just like why are you telling me the sky is blue and grass is green and drink water? And like that's what I hear. It's like drink water, breathe air, the sky is blue. That's this. It's like the Charlie Brown wah 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 wah. That's what it comes up. It's like okay, yes. And so, are there other people in the room who don't know this? Because if they don't, it's a problem. Especially if you're a teacher. Like, like you should know these things. So I think yeah, for the introverted person who has this inner world where we've constructed all of the like. I mean, that's why I'm always talking about philosophy. If you're an introvert, you have read books, you've asked questions about what is free will, what is choice, you know, what does it mean to be a person? Like, how should I, like, you've asked all these human questions. You've built that inner architecture so that now you're like, okay, I'm living that architecture out in the world. Like, I know how to interact with people, I know how to treat them as human. Like, I don't need to start at these basic human principles on how to treat each other. So I don't want to sit and watch a PowerPoint. I literally don't want to watch a PowerPoint
Oh God,
about how to be human. Like the
right.
fact that we have to like watch a PowerPoint on how to be a human being, I'm just looking around like, am I missing something? Like did I miss something? Because number one, if you're not doing this, I don't even know how you're functioning. Because the first thing you are as a human, the thing you are all the time as a human. So yeah, I think that's why I get most frustrated because that you talking about, you know, the opposite of drag it out. That's where I want to jump in the most and be like, okay, everybody in here, shut up. I got this. Like, I want to go to the front of the room and be like, I got this. I got this. You want to learn how to be human? You want to learn how to do all stuff? Like, let me take this because I've read the philosophy on it.
Yeah, PowerPoints for life. I would let me turn on Clubhouse again too. I keep shutting it off so that we save on the feedback. There we go. Don't want to deprive the Clubhouse room. Yeah, the you you stole it. The having time to have thought about things that I now think are basic. I'm stunned when I realize that this is not common. Like predeterminism, these kind of topics, right? Think just sort of basic philosophical tenets, right? Like, do we think that there's choice or free will? Do we think that that you know? Do you have a moral compass? What is it? What's the basis of morality? Like certain things that you get into, especially Clubhouse, and they make it like it's this big aha point, and it's like, who has gotten here as an adult and has not at some point in their life had like 5 minutes? You don't need a course on it. Just like, hey, sit
Right.
down and be like, what's your compass? Where's your moral center? What are you for? What are you against? That's it. We're not trying to make it into a huge. You don't have to be like Plato. You just be like, okay, what is something I stand for? What is something that I will speak up against, right? What is something
Right.
I believe? And then, yeah, maybe if you have some free, and I get it, not everyone has the free time to be sitting around being, a philosopher on a stone kind of thing. But you can steal 5 or 10 minutes to think for yourself in the course of the day. You can, and I get excited by that, right? If I'm doing some work and I get done and I have a break, first thing I want to do on my break, it just because of nature of what I do, I don't like to have a break too long unless there's something going in as an input, unless, or I'm doing an output, which is I'm going to write something, right? Which is kind of an input and an output at the same time. And that's what people don't get about creativity. It looks like an output, but there's a lot of input going
Right.
on, throughout the day, and then you get a chance to create some of it. But the process of creating is kind of like an input as well. It's not just an output. And so give me 5 minutes to think for just about like what I'm thinking. And I'm so happy. I'm like, I'm plotting my day sometimes going, where's the first 10 minutes I have that I can have for myself? I have like little notes in my phone. A lot of times I don't do the notes in my phone, and I just kind of have so much going on that there's like 5 that are burning in the frontal lobe. And I'm like, oh, I got to get at this and I got to think about this. And it's that word, right? I got to think about this. It's so I
Right.
know where I am. And then we've talked about this plenty of times. So it looks like it's off the top of the head when the topic comes up.
Right.
But and again, as people who watch our show say, no, I only have a few areas of expertise, right? And so I'm just preparing for those particular areas, and I prepare harder for if I'm asked to do something that's outside of my realm. Like I got a deadline for something coming up Wednesday. It's a little out of my realm. So it's burning in my frontal lobe. It's just how I am. I'm like, oh man, I need to find some extra time to get to this, right? Unless it's something that I know that I can pop off the top of my head. This is something I can't fudge. This is something I don't have a million rounds of artillery on. So I got to go build up the artillery, i.e., read and listen to what other people have to say, right? Have some thoughts coming in as input so that I can do the output that's required for Wednesday. So I'm at my best if someone's really giving me some nourishment that I long for. But I tune completely out to the opposite when it's these trite kind of things that people are selling as, the golden enchilada. I'm like,
Right.
oh man. And so I get mad at Clubhouse. I mean, you realize we're on there too. It's grifter central, and people selling, snake oil and trying to bottle it off as the wine of Christ. I mean, it's like, it's just, it's snake oil, people. It's like, don't pay for that. Don't pay for someone to
Right.
do a SWOT analysis. You read it.
Well,
It is what it is. Right.
well, to your point, but here's the problem, right? And I say this a lot, especially when talking to like educators about students. People say like, "Oh, how do we keep students from getting tricked in social media and scams?" And it's like, well, you have to give students and adults adequate time to sit down, think, self-reflect, and read. Because as you were just saying, when you think about who you are, what your values are, what is right, what is wrong, what do you think is true? Like you're always talking about conspiracy theories. When you take the time to just like wager in your mind, like, does that sound right? Like, does that even sound right? When those opportunities come in front of you, you're like, oh, I've practiced this. Like, oh, I've thought about this. The problem is when you don't think and you're presented with something in the moment, your emotions are in play. And so then you're like, you feel like pressured to make whatever decision is most convenient. Right. So that's why I'm always like emphasizing role play, like role play with students. Like you're going to talk about drugs. Like that's what they used to do, the stuff with, okay, we're going to pretend like someone's coming to, come up with you with drugs. What you're going to do. Problem is you do that like once a month, once a year. Okay, guys, we're going to do DARE program once. So if someone comes in with drugs, what do you do? Say no. I was like, okay, you would not approach any other test in school like that. Okay, kids, your standardized test, your SATs are coming up tomorrow. So we're going to practice a practice test today. No, that would be disaster and that would be failure. So you would make sure to practice that as much as possible. And you got to do the same thing with thinking. You got to practice thinking, role playing, imagine. That's why I would say imagination play is practice for real life. That's why when you think, you don't get in as much trouble because you play out the scenarios in your head. You go through them enough to say, man, that would hurt. Maybe it would hurt. So when you have the opportunity to do it, you might still make a bad decision. I mean, like, yeah, we all make some kind of bad choice, even when we've thought about it. But the likelihood that you're going to make bad decisions after you've at least thought about it and role play and wrestled in your own mind, the percentage is going to go down drastically. Considerably, the percentage of you making a dumb decision is going to go down simply because you practice. Like you talk about with your free throws. I mean, the more free throws you shoot, the better you're going to get at hitting them. So the more you think about your values and your morals and what you care about, the better you're going to get at living them out, practicing them.
Yeah, and there's a confidence, right, that we're building. I mean, it's not like I don't know how to shoot a free throw 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I wasn't as proficient as I am now. It's not like I didn't have exactly the same knowledge. It's that you're building the confidence. You know, we call it muscle memory, but we're building up repetition so that it becomes as close to automatic, the automatic portion of our brain, which is different. It's a different part of our brain than the part that isn't, you know. When we do stuff off reflex, it's way different than when we do stuff off of in learning mode, right? Like we're like, I know how to do it, kind of. I'm still getting the form down. I want to know what it feels like. Is, you know, the i.e. Malcolm Gladwell with the 10,000 hours. Like, there's a reason there's that many hours. You know, you're binding all the different parts. You know, for lack of better words, you're binding all the different moving parts that there are in your body, whether it's muscle or memory. And where we use the fake term muscle memory, right, to describe that. But when we build those areas of the brain up to a point where we're comfortable, then we get into confidence. We're like, oh, I've done this a bazillion times. You feel like you haven't cheated the system. So if you've thought about something that you're going to say many times, that's when we talk about it just comes off the top. It just rattles off. It's exactly what we do when we're freestyle. Yes, sir, Feet. Shout out to Feet. It's when we just, you know, come off the top of the head the first time, and we've never done that before. That's why people look at you and they go, "Oh my gosh, I don't know how you can freestyle." What they're saying is, "I've not done that much, so I can't understand how you would do it." You know, so we got a little check-in right there. You know, and that's okay. And that's my always answer. No, it's not magic. It's just that I've done it a lot. You know,
right.
You know, what's my best weapon? I'm a little obsessive compulsive. I like things that require a lot of practice.
It's funny you say that, because I know you talk about that a lot. And as I did my little walk outside today, that's literally one of the ideas that came up. And it's funny because also I did a word drop on Instagram today. So if you go to my Instagram, there's like 46 new word plays up. So I was thinking about one of the older word plays I did, which was imagination. And so originally I was just like, yeah, magic in imagination. It sounds cool. Imagination is magic. But the new meaning I came up with today is like a magic nation is more like the jick from logic. So a magic nation is the creative's version of logic is like a creative logic. It has its own set of rules. So I was saying, if an architect or an engineer saw a building, they would just start saying, "Oh no, you need to move that load bearing wall. You need to fix that. You need to change that angle," because they've studied physics enough to know the rules. But when they do it so effortlessly, to you, it's like, "Oh man, how do you know this?" And they're like, "I just studied physics over and over and over." It's like, it's not new. I just studied it enough to understand that that's not going to work because that's dangerous. Creatives have their own version of that. Like when I go into a room and I work with students, I'm like, okay, there's the loud kid. Okay, there's the kid who's got amazing stuff in his head, but he can't feel like he can't talk because of loud. Like I'm just putting all the kids together. I'm seeing the talents, and I'm like, okay, they're probably going to work together on a podcast because that's going to help with what we're trying to say. Oh no, maybe we should do a music video. Like I understand the experiences that I've already done as a creative person enough that there's like a logic to it. There's a set of rules. To everyone else, they're like,
yeah,
how did you get the kids to work together? So I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, this kid is talking all the time about sports. Like, so obviously, if I'm going to do something, I'm like, hey, kid, do a sports podcast, right? Like, or this kid is over here talking about like his favorite Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm like, okay, kid, you're going to draw a comic book or something. So that a magic is really like logic. Like creators have a magical logic that they use so that we are in that experience, that the confidence, like we talk about, that comes from experience. Like you can't get it any other way. You can't get it by just thinking about it. You have to literally have made a song, made a beat, drawn a picture, done a podcast. Like the more times you do that, That just gets encoded into who you are. So then when you step into that room, you have that confidence to be like, okay, we're doing a podcast with this group of kids.
Yeah. You know, the other piece of the confidence part too, striking me while you were talking, was it's not just the confidence, it's the fact that, I mean, it's a large part of it. It's the fact that we all have the experience of when we're like, people call it imposter syndrome, really, but it's like when, and I feel like it's overused, but it's we've all felt like, man, I don't have any business doing what I'm doing right now. Like to go back to the basketball analogy, you know, like I'm working on trying to make my threes as good as my free throws, right? And so that was like my thing in my head. I'm like, man, if I could only shoot my 3-pointers the way I shoot free throws, right? So now I'm getting really close. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting really close. But the thing that got in the way all the time was I'd hit 5 straight 3-pointers and go, I don't have any business hitting 6 straight. Like, I'm going to miss this next one. Like, because it feels like I've not done that before. And, you know, people always saying like fake it till you make it, or act like you've hit the big shot before, kind of thing, right? And it's like, at some point, it's still an act when you haven't done it enough. Like, yeah, I've done it 3 or 4 times, but I haven't done it like 50 times, right? And use another metaphor, right? Talking about umpiring. People say, you know, I'm a new umpire, but I've done basketball a ton of time. It's a similar skill set. But what happens is I ask people all the time, I ask every umpire, say, when did you feel comfortable? And they're all right around the same answer. Around the 50th game. I haven't even done 50 games. So I'm at the realization that I'm not even anywhere near comfortable. You know, I've done about half that, right? So I'm like, but I am just starting to feel more comfortable. And I'm sure the number's a little different for everybody, but there's so much stuff going on. What they're saying is it takes this long until you're not thinking anymore, where it doesn't feel like you. Those are 2 different processes that we do. There's when you're thinking it and when you're not thinking, right? And we always talk about it needs to be automatic. And yeah, it's for the 3. It's like, okay, when no one's on me and I'm in the gym, I now say, if I'm open on that spot and you're not covering me, that's automatic. Like, there's no way I'm going to miss that shot. And I know that if I hit 8, I don't feel like in a game, if I hit 8 straight, I'm thinking I'm going to hit the 9th now, you know? And so that's because you've done it enough before, not just once or twice. You've done it enough that you feel like you have permission to hit that next shot. And it's the same with talking. It's the same with everything. You feel like you have credibility, you have authority. And until you feel that imposter syndrome is always going to be there. There's no way of cheating it. You have to put in the time. So if it's a thinking man or woman's game, you have to have thought of the time in your private thoughts or wherever you've been. And sometimes people, you know, they do the word that we both kind of hate, but we still use, deep, right? Yo, he's deep. Deep just means I've had a lot of time to think about this. And I've chosen to invest in myself to think about the situation. But again, I only got so many areas, right? Like, I got so many areas that I'm thinking. It's like I can't think about everything. Like, yes, science, math, and music and education are kind of like my areas, right? So outside of that, I'm not the person you want to ask to paint the house, to do the plumbing, to even do the wiring. I'm a little bit better with wiring, but it's like I'm not generally the person that you want to ask. I'm not the handyman. You know, like, that ain't me. You know, I might know how to dig a ditch or do a few things or, you know, whatever, but just because I've done it before. But again, I'd rather pay someone to do it who's done it a bazillion times, because I've chosen to invest in these very few particular areas where, don't get it twisted, I'm going to come off as a person who has confidence. I got confidence in the things I should be confident in. I don't have confidence in the other areas. Like, people always say that too. Like, oh, you're so confident. Yeah, in those 4 areas. You know, I might know what it looks like to be confident. So I might have that same game face on when I'm walking down the street, but I'm like, oh, don't think that means I think I'm confident when it comes to, you know, but if you want me to paint your living room, I'm going to be like very shaky until you look at it. Be like, I'm not so sure you're going to like this. Or if you want me to paint you a picture, I'm like, ooh, gee, like, I can draw, but I don't paint a picture. I'm not the one, you know? So I'm going to be on eggshells until you see it. Be like, oh, I like that. I'm going to be like, thank the Lord, you know? And it's the same in a conversation. I'm now truly comfortable in conversations. I don't come off. I've heard enough people say it, right? I've enough people say, you don't come off as this at all. And I'm like, good, because I'm starting to feel that too. I'm starting to feel like I'm okay anytime there's a conversation required. It's just that I don't need to be the center of the conversation, and I'd rather not be until I'm needed. You know,
Right.
my default is not say anything until I'm needed. You know, and then when I'm needed and I feel like it's I'm adding real value to it, not SWOT analysis value, then I'm comfortable and I'm good with it. You know.
Yeah, I was trying to draw a diagram real quick because it's funny what you were talking about on that same talk I did today. What you were saying about intuition. Well, yeah, what you were saying about like muscle memory, not thinking about it. I realized I was like, oh man, it's like 3 phases. There's like not knowing to like not knowing again. So it's like your intuition says, hey, try this. And you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. It's like, yeah, just, but you kind of have an instinct. You're kind of pointed towards the door. Just try. You're like, okay. Oh yeah, kind of do the ball like that. So you just do it without thinking about the mechanics. But then there's like a very conscious, deliberate part of, okay, elbow in, this degrees, follow through, and you're very, staccato about it until it becomes fluid again. And then it goes like back to that intuitive thing where you're like, don't think about it now. Because the moment you think about it is when you trip up. And I'm sure you can attest, like you start thinking about a poem and you're like, I forgot where I was. It's like, why am I thinking about something I've done before? Like
Absolutely.
I've literally been on stage and be like, I've done this poem 100 times. Now, for whatever reason, I decide to say, hey, let me think about the next line for some reason. And then I start stuttering. And I'm like, why did you think about something you already knew? I don't know. I don't know. I was afraid I was gonna forget. It's like you did. Like you did because you started thinking about. So there's something about that
Yeah. Yeah.
intuition and not knowing that has its own strength. And this is how I've described intuition over the years. I describe intuition as self-trust. And I was like, the same way a friend and you come together and you spend time with one another, you build trust, just the more things you do together. And then eventually you say, okay, let's take the next step. Like, oh, you picked me up from the airport. Like I asked you, great. Okay, now I need you to pick me up from the airport like really early. I can't miss this flight. Okay, can you pick me up from the airport even earlier? And then eventually it's on autopilot. Oh, they got it. I trust them. I only have to question. They're going to be there. It's like most people don't do that with the self, though. How much time do you spend with self saying like, hey, Bernard, yeah, what are we doing today? I don't know. Let's spend time together. Okay, what are we going to do? I don't know. Try to write poetry. Oh, we've never done that before. All right, let's try it together. And like the more time you spend with yourself, you trust yourself more to do other things. But if you don't build that bond in between you and you're never going to try anything new because you're like, I don't want to do it alone. Like, I don't want to go out by myself. It's like, yeah, well, spend time with yourself and get to know yourself, and your intuition will build the trust.
This is something too that should make it should make its way into our workshop when we do some of these Introverse live ones that we have coming up as we head towards the fall. Not that we're anywhere near the fall yet. Relax, we're at the pool. I'm just saying, when we're there, it's not even mid-July. You can't even call it mid-July yet because it's only the 10th. All right, so chill. Not trying to steal anyone's summer fun. No, but this is a piece that really is resonating with me. I was thinking it before you said it. Use the same metaphors and analogies as I will. This weekend in New Orleans, myself and Fly, and shout out to LD, we did 5 shows, and the time that we had for the shows were 15-minute intervals. But because Fly is not the same group as me, and Freedom Corner brand submitted our stuff separately, some of those shows we had twice as much time as everybody else, right? There'd be like 5 acts for the night, but it's really Fly has 15 minutes and I have 15 minutes, but it's really Freedom Corner brand. So we got 30 minutes, right? Because there's plenty of people. Just think there's people up there, there's 4 people in a group. They're performing. They got 15 minutes. Because we went separate, we had 30, right? So what this did was, there was one show that this wasn't true. We actually had 10 minutes, right? And that was together. Now we have songs together. Okay, so we got a couple songs together. One of those songs I know really well. The other song I don't really know that well. And so I've spent some time, once I realized that we were going to be doing these combined shows, we were making our sets back in the hotel room. We were, on the fly. Some of it's on the cloud, right? Sometimes you need flash drive. Other times it needs to be emailed. There's all these variables, right? And we're prepared for every one of them, right? The dream scenario is that we can just use the phone. We got it in the cloud. I change it up on the fly while I'm in the audience, right? And then we're doing it and we're set to go. Now, I had this other song that they both really, really wanted me to do. They're loving the song, right? So I said, yeah, I don't know the lyrics to that song like that, because I don't know about you, but in the current mode of churning out a lot of stuff, I just sit down, write it, record it. I record it. Like, I'm now at a proficiency level where I can write it, look at it once, say it once, and now I can record it like I've said it 100 times, right? You're not going to tell the difference, right? So, but the problem is I didn't force myself to memorize it. I just wrote it, and then I said it, and it sounds good enough, right? So when it comes to perform that song live, I don't really have that song down like that, right? And I have this awareness level of where I am with every song. Like, oh, I memorized this pretty well for a couple shows. I memorized this one into the permanent hard drive. Like, most of my songs are in the permanent hard drive. But a lot of the ones I've created in the last 5 years, they're not. You know, you get the studio in the house, you just churning out stuff. And I'm like, man, I've never really had to perform this song. So it's not in there like that. So again, I have to find the time. So while I'm there, I'm neurotic about it. I'm like, dude, I'm going to need 25 minutes tonight. Like, what for? Oh, I got to learn that verse, you know? So I got to the point where I had to be able to say it through, of course, 100%, right? Without feeling like I can ever truly say it, right? If you can't say it through 100% when there's no, it's just like shooting free throws, right? You can't shoot them when there's no one guarding you. You're not gonna be able to shoot them in a game, or a 3-pointer or whatever, or shots from those distances, right? Granted, free throws are always by yourself, but you know what I mean. So if I can't shoot them perfectly when no one's covering me, I'm certainly not gonna be able to shoot them in a game. And it's the same with doing a show. I say this to everybody. You think you know it, but what if someone says hi to you while you're in the middle of doing it? That's going to throw you all off. It's like that second guessing you're talking about, right? It's like, oh man, why did I even think about that fact I didn't know this line? Like, that's enough to screw you up. But when you have a song in autopilot, man, I could be juggling. You could be throwing knives at me. You know, you want to be in that mode. And so I use that as a gauge in my real life for other things. I'll say, but I've never had to verbalize it before. I just know this is, while you were talking, I was like, I do this all the time. The analogy is I compare it to a rap song and how well I know it. Because there's ones I don't know that sound really good that I'm like, man, I got to find 2 hours to go over the song so that I can really get it good. And I get to this point where all of a sudden it just hits the permanent hard drive. And for me, the process is I got to get close to 80%, force myself to hit it 100%. Then I wake up the next day and then I try it. And then I do it again, and then I'm like, got it. And once I have it, I'm usually good forever, unless there's a line that I tweak or change. And the reason I'm taking so long saying all this is because I don't think people have a metaphor for this, an analogy for this to use as the barometer. Like, I do this and I say, what would this be like if it was a song? In other words, how prepared am I to speak Wednesday on the topic that I have? And I'm in my head, I'm like, it's like the song that I just did in New Orleans. And by the way, I also do this. I tell everyone, don't read some stuff off your phone. And I said this to Fly. I said, but that doesn't apply to me. He was laughing. He was like, what do you mean? And I was like, no, I'm not being hypocritical. I'm saying I'm good at what I do, right? And I'm like, after I establish with the first 2 songs or 3 songs that I'm in full control, they'll let me read off anything. They'll let me whip out a whole book, you know? And because, and I say to the audience, as soon as they look at me, right? I'm like, look at me, right? And they're like introducing me as the grand master of all rap or whatever, you know? And it's like, and the people are looking at me like, this guy? You know, and I'm like, I want to come out the gate with something that establishes I got the reins, right? And then you start seeing the faces go, oh, like, okay. And then you do another one, and they're like, oh. And it's like, hey, guys, I'm going to read this third one. They're like, fine, read it. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So, and I make that analogy all the time. We're saying, you can come dressed like this. If you can teach math, if you do whatever you do for a job, if you've locked it down before and people know it, oh, you can come in shorts and flip-flops and sneakers. You can do whatever you want to do. Once they know you're in control, all rules are off, right? But we got to do that for ourselves. You don't have permission to dress in shoes and flip-flops and t-shirts and bathing suits if you haven't put in the work. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, be honest with yourself. Like, what things in life you have as an 8? Do you have as a 9? Do you have a 10? And to switch the metaphor again, which things do you have down to flip-flop mode? You know what I'm saying? Like, can you wear flip-flops there? Probably not, because you don't have that kind of credibility there. You know what I mean? And so that means you got to put in the work and you got to put in the time. And those are kind of a little insight into how I think about it in my own head, which would be fun to share with other people, you know?
Well, why here? You must have been secretly listening to my talk today, because like everything you're saying, I was saying, let me know if you can
Where was
see
your
it.
talk?
It was just a clubhouse when I do my walk and talk.
Oh no, I definitely didn't. I
I
never
know you
know when
did.
your talks are going to be. Is there a schedule to your talks, or you just whenever you feel the mood?
It's like when I go walk, I don't know. Like no, yeah, there's no
Just
schedule. I just
okay. It's not like
I'm like I'm
it's not like a set room time and then you go walking. You got the walk and
no no
then the yeah. That's how I do
yeah
too. I was going to say, well, I wasn't listening to your thing unless you were secretly listening to us because this is what we've been talking about all weekend. This same thing we've been talking about. We were like, yo, you don't have the right to pull out the book. And so one thing before you get going, I did pull out the phone. I pulled out the phone not yesterday's show, but the night before. We started killing it in this room, and people were like, they were whipping out the tip jars, and they were coming up and saying, and I was like, you know what, we're all friends here. Let me whip out the phone, because I
right
don't think I know this one that cool, and they're like, all
right.
right, cool, But
Yo,
I changed the order, and I'm like, I wasn't even gonna do it, and I'm like, let me bring this one out because now we're comfortable. And I told everyone before it happened, I'm like, trust me, by the third or fourth track, they're gonna be cool with us doing it. And it's a great song. It's just I don't
right.
really know it that well. Now I could probably say the whole thing right here, because we put in that work. So sorry.
Yep, yep. All right. So let me know if you can see the diagram. Can you see that?
No. I don't know if you can share where you're not the person who created the thing.
Oh,
And I can't from this mode. Unless you sent it to me. And actually, I don't even know if I can share anything in this mode. Normally, I can screen share, but being on the phone out here at the pool, I'm not sure I'm able to do that. Let me.
let me try. I tried to do whole screen. Let me see if I just do tab. What about now? Do you see it?
I personally do not, but let me look around here. They couldn't have made this wonderful interface that allows me to do everything, change our logos and do all this kind of stuff, and not have. By the way, the one thing it didn't allow me to do, which I noticed, and you probably noticed, it didn't allow me to do the intro. So we just had to start. So I'm thinking that's because it's oh, actually, it is down there. All right, I found it. I just had to scroll up, and it listed like a person. All right, here we go.
All right. All
See,
right. All right. Nice. Yeah, because
I knew
yeah,
they
I was,
would make this beautiful interface and not let us do that.
yeah, because I was surprised that Zoom let you do it. Oh, you can share a screen on the phone. So this was just a diagram I was talking about with the, you know, coming out of yourself, your intuition. It becomes like, oh, I followed that unknown. Now I'm getting to know, knowledge, practice, practice, practice. No, 10,000 hours. And then it comes back into the unknown because you wanted to return to that place of natural ability. So yeah, the whole talk that I was doing was called, here, I'll stop sharing. I called it creative aptitude. That was just like the word that popped in my head. And I started talking
Okay.
about, I remember somebody who said, man, we had like almost like a creative SAT when they were in school. I was like, I never had that. I would have killed that.
What? What?
So I was just going on about this word aptitude and what it means. And like aptitude means natural ability, and how creatives have a natural ability to know themselves and know humans and know the world around them. So when you come in a room, you can easily adapt. So then I came up with adaptitude. Like it's knowing how to be like in a room, see like, hey, we were going to do a podcast, but these kids don't seem to be wanting to do a podcast. How do I divert and change and go with the flow? But I was bringing up that very point about you can watch somebody do something on the fly and you're so enamored, like, oh my goodness. And it's like, yeah, but that's a culmination of the 10,000 hours, the
Right.
10,000 practices, the 10,000 experiences
Right.
that
And,
just to
and only
you.
lawyers figure this out, right? Because that's how they charge, right? They make 5 phone calls for you, and they still charge into the $300 an
Right,
hour rate.
right,
It's because it's the
right,
cumulative knowledge, right? That you're
right,
paying for, right? We don't do that. We're like, oh,
right.
freestyle, yeah, sure, we'll do that for free.
Freestyle, but these styles ain't free. But okay,
But
so
it's close to it though.
right. So to connect all that we're saying to the, to drag it out of you topic and what our strengths are. So everything we just talked about knowing yourself, putting in the time, feeling the confidence, we have the confidence. Like there's nothing to drag out of us. We have, as introverts, this gathered knowledge experience over years and years in depth and wealth of knowledge. It's like I said, it's when you're in that micro context, it's so much of it that people are just like, oh, whoa, like this is so much. And you're just like, okay, well, this is what I have. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I have all of this insight to give you, but you guys have this in an hour meeting, but you want me to talk. You want this much of the iceberg. You want the tip of the iceberg, but you guys already have the tip of the iceberg. Like we said, you guys already know about the SWOT and all these other terms. Like we know this. Like I don't want to talk about what we already know. I want to tell you about the iceberg below the water. So I guess the strategy for introverts is like, well, number one, just recognize that it's not like a deficit. It's not a deficit that you're in a meeting or in a conversation and people are like, well, do you have something to say? And you're like, well, kind of, but not in 2 minutes or not in an hour. It's just like what you have to offer is it expands outside of that hour meeting to after the meeting, before the meeting. It expands so much larger than that context. So the question is, how do you bring people into that context? And I think we talk about that sometimes, you know, the social introvert versus the creative extrovert. There's when I'm on stage or when I'm performing or when we're doing this podcast, I feel like I'm in that context. I'm like, no, you're coming into this world. This is where I dominate. I'm defining the rules. You're listening to what I say. So I think one strategy I have for introverts is like, okay, find that one context. I mean, you might have multiple, but find the one thing where you're in control. You have control over the time, control over like the content, control over how it's distributed. So you can establish like, this is what I'm here to do. This is how I'm going to do it. This is the way it needs to be said. And it honestly, it might be you talking to yourself. I mean, sometimes it is. Like when I say I do these walk-in talks on Clubhouse, that's for me. Like that's literally for me. It's like I got this idea, like you said, burning in my head. I don't care if anybody else wants to hear it. I need to hear it. So I hit record. I say it out loud. I walk around the parking lot and I say it in the way I want to say it. Sometimes people come in, they leave, they pop in like, oh, there's only one guy in here. Bye. I'm like, okay, fine. That has nothing to do with me. That's they didn't want to hear it. I'd have nothing to do with that. So you have to like practice, like establishing your confidence. You have to practice doing a Clubhouse room or doing a solo podcast or doing a podcast with another introvert or, you know, writing in your book or recording on a voice note, like something where you yourself are defining all of the terms. Because when you start to do that, at the very least, you know, you own your world, right? I think if nothing else, you know, I own my world and that gives me a piece of like belonging in this world. Like maybe other people don't allow me into the conversation. Maybe they don't let me talk at the meeting, but I get to do that here, even if it's just for me. And I think at the very least, that helps you feel like your voice is being heard. Because I think that's what introverts mostly deal with, like not being heard. So you're not going to necessarily like go into the meeting and they're like, whoa, we want to do this introvert way now. Man, thank you so much for bringing the insightful, you know, more patient way. We're going to have more longer meetings. No, they're not going to do that. Like, let's be honest. They're not going to make longer meetings. They're not going to make more introspective meetings. They want to get in and get out, just like you want to get in and get out. Like Henry's trying to get in and get out. He's like, yo. But I think one that, like I said, it builds your confidence. But I think I guess the other thing I'm saying is like, how, I guess I've been thinking recently, like, how can I take that and expand it to where there are other people? Because recently, like, I've been feeling like I've been dealing with people who don't listen. And I'm just like, I can't even have a conversation with people. So in one way, I'm tired of trying to connect. I'm like, look, I'm just going to, like, I don't know, do TED Talks, do Bernard Talks, do things where you have to pay to talk to me because people just don't want to talk and they don't want to listen. So it's like, I'm not going to have these just like informal conversations anymore because they're just not productive. So maybe it's about
Bernard Talks has a good ring to it, though. By the way, I do like Bernard Talks.
Well, my friend gave me that a while ago, so that's what I started calling them, just Bernard Talks. That's what I'm on Instagram at Bernard Talks.
TED is an acronym. I didn't even know that for the longest time.
You didn't know that? Technology,
didn't know that.
Entertainment design.
Yeah, I never bothered to look it up. I really thought there was some dude TED, and then like after I was getting close to doing my first one, I was like, "What is this TED stuff?" I love them. I mean, I much like you, I've heard you talk about so many of them. I mean, Ken Robinson one I have assigned in countless classrooms, right?
Yep.
Now I've kind of hit the point where I'm kind of like, okay, I kind of assume people know it, but I'm wrong all the time. People would be like, "What's a TED Talk?" Still, I'm like, really? You know what a TED Talk is? But I had points where like I could just, people go down the YouTube bunny rabbit hole. I could go down the TED Talk hole like for hours and hours and hours.
Right.
Now I've kind of I put a lid on it, but I think Bernard Talks would be
Daddy, let's go.
would have some. My son is eager to go. Well, you're in luck, Henry, because guess what? I have 2% battery left on the clubhouse room until I have no microphone. So poor clubhouse folks.
I still need. I want to go now.
Yes, I know you do. Yeah, it's been 2 minutes. It's been 22 minutes. No, you've only been asking for 2 minutes. So, I think I'm almost wrapped up there, Bernard. How about you?
All right, Henry, let us wrap it up, please.
Yeah, we got to wrap it up.
So I was saying, just like I think for introverts, my question for myself recently is like, how can I take this little context that I have and expand the boundaries of it so it does include other people, but I still maintain the control in the sense that this is my domain and you're in it. Because I do want to talk to people, but I want to talk to people who want to like have productive conversations that go towards something.
I've got it.
This is just what
You build your house into a speakeasy. You build you have a almost like the Charlie Brown lemonade stand there, where they for 5 cents they're doing the psychotherapy, whatever it was that they were doing.
I have infinite drinks.
Nice. You almost have to have some kind of traveling circus for it, meaning that the cool thing with this is the infrastructure for this. It's in the cloud, right?
Right.
And so many people, they build their own apps or whatever. But if you have your own kind of like pop-up Bernard Talk anywhere you go, that's when you can do it. But it's like you're subservient to what the medium is. Something like this, where we do Restream, we don't really rely on one medium, but it costs money. You know what I'm saying? But that's one way to do it. I mean, like you said, you could feel the terms and the conditioning, like, oh, this is my living room that I'm comfortable in. I can take it to the pool. Yes. Take it to school, or I can take it wherever. Well, you just kind of take it on the cloud there, son. Yeah, that's it. That's what you do.
That work.
Well, that's what we're talking about. We're trying to
How
figure
do
it
you
out.
copy and paste your room and take it to school?
Or not.
Oh.
Maybe this isn't the winning idea.
Yes, you can.
Well, no, I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, there's something in as you were talking. I mean, I think about what home concerts people were doing when the pandemic first started. Like there was this one band that they couldn't tour, so they literally did like a different room every night in their apartment as like the tour. They're like, tonight live from our living room, and they did like a different set, and then the next they did the kitchen. So it was like you're coming into our domain.
Lounge.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the thing that I'm always telling, like, I mean, the point I always emphasize on this podcast is introverts, you are going to change the world. Like that's what we do. We change the world. But most likely we're not going to change the world in the sense like you're going to come into a room and they're just like, oh, wow, we were so wrong. Like, no, that takes a pandemic. As you can see, it literally requires a pandemic to make people be like, oh, right, we need to go inside and self-reflect. So I'm always, introverts, the point for me to you is take control of your world so that you have peace and sanity in the world versus trying to be like, oh, I'm going to change how meetings are done. I'm going to change because people, as you know, these people aren't listening. They're not listening. So you have to do what you can for yourself to feel like you have a space to take up in the world. And that will, I think, offset some of the frustration, some of the like negative experiences you might have. The last thing I'll say was the other strategy I thought of was, I mean, this is more about like relationships than it was directly about a lot of stuff we got into, but I wanted to say it because I thought about it earlier. Okay, so I had a falling out with somebody, and so we were supposed to have this very difficult conversation to try to like mend the relationship. So I had to, before we met in the email, I said, if we're going to meet, I said, this is what I need to know. I said, I need to know that when we're talking, I'm not going to be interrupted while I'm trying to say all the stuff that I have to say about the problem. And they were like, okay, if that's what you need to come have the conversation, then I can do that. And it worked pretty well for the first part. I was able to get it out, and then it took on, a little back and forth. But I feel like those kind of strategies for the introvert, it's like, hey, you got to establish early on in certain situations, like what you need to be able to do. You need to establish up front, like what you need in order to like have it not drug out of you, right? I mean, that's the reason it was dragged out of people, is because they weren't given the space to say what they needed to say. So if that person doesn't want to have to, that's my final word is going to be, my response is, if you think it needs to be dragged out of me, perhaps it's because you didn't give me the space that I needed to speak to you. So you then felt, oh, you needed to come drag it out of me. It's like, no, give me the proper, like, respectful space to actually speak what I need to speak, and then there won't have to be any dragging, because you're respecting me to be able to speak in the time and the manner that I want to and need to.
I thought you were going to come with the punchline at the end. I thought you were going to say, perhaps you were the drag. If it needs to be drugged out of me, well, I know. Because you are the drag. Sorry. And by the way, if anyone was wondering, this is where we were the whole time. So we were just chilling at the townhouse pool. This is how we do. I hope everybody's had a good weekend, and you didn't feel like we had to drag it out of you. And I didn't feel like anything had to be dragged out of me, except Henry dragging me out of here. But I'm down to 1% on the Clubhouse phone. Folks, in the Clubhouse phone right now, it might be a little muffled because I think it had to go in my pocket as I was walking. Sorry, my bad. Here I am. And here's Henry. Here's Henry. Henry's making me drag. We're in a bathroom. It's sort of a bathroom. You got to walk through. It's like a portal you have to go through to get to the other side of the Clubhouse. Now we're good. But yeah. Yes, we are. Yes. You got the door there? Thanks, bud. Yeah, I do like the you're the drag. We had to drag it out of me. But there's some truth there. Only because it's like what we were talking about when you go into the meeting and you don't want to be there, or someone's going to give you the SWOT analysis kind of stuff that we're talking about. Like, you're not really giving me any gems. You're bringing me something that you brought, like you said, that's the fourth time. I got a limit, it needs to be a different series name or something. If you're bringing me to the fourth installment, it's like, switch it up, like, make me feel like there's going to be something new there that's worth my time and worth me coming, or else it will have to be dragged out of me. You drag me to get me there. People say that too all the time. Do I have to drag you out of the house to get you there? Right? That's the other way they say it. That's the other way. It's not just dragging it out of you. It's dragging you out that comfortable spot,
right.
And that's what's in common with both. It's always both a comfortable spot. Comfortable spot might be being in your head and thinking, or just being in your house. And what do you do in your house? Thinking, creating, comfortable, So, and I'm dealing with that right now. I'm dealing with I'll end it. I got a couple of emails going where people are trying to have me do some stuff, and they're not understanding, because I'm being too nice in there, that it's like, I'm not trying to come to your function. Like, tell me why I should be coming. And,
right.
And it's someone wanting me to entertain them who knows me very well. You know what I mean? And it's like, I'm sure you have friends who want you to come be the spoken word poet, and it's like, really? Like, on a Friday in the middle of the summer at 2:00 in the afternoon, and you want me to stay to 5, and it's far away, and you're just saying, hey, come on over. I don't want to come over. And then I felt like I made it clear, and it's not clear. It's not clear in the email. And it's like, because they're like, okay, well, yeah, it's at X time. And I'm like, we just had this conversation, and now you're just assuming, like, it's my fault because I didn't state it hard enough, but I didn't want to, because it was in that grayish area between, if this wasn't you, someone else, what you'd be coming up with for this. Yes, why not?
He wouldn't actually be able to go to it anyway because he has his pro quo show on Friday.
Thank you. See, what Henry, like, maybe Henry would be our spokesperson. I was just, as you were talking, I was thinking about a new introvert service. We will respond to the people in your life who you don't want to have to, like, blow
this way,
off.
bud.
Me and Pro
Right.
will just write emails that are very, because these people I don't know. I'm like, whatever. John says he can't do it. Bye. Sarah, nah, she won't be at your wedding. Doesn't want to come.
Yes, I call that the bad guy. I mean, that's what the personal manager does. You know, it's like Pro didn't say no. You know, Bernard said no, or vice versa. You know, it's especially when people take advantage of their friendship. You know, and it's like, there's one thing about, you know, Bernard, if you call me up and you're like, you know, granted, you're not down the street, but if you were, and you're like, hey, can you come through? We're gonna, you know, spit a couple bars at the party or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, of course I'll come. It's you, you know, but it's like when it's not someone that it's like that with, that you talk to once in a blue, and they're trying to use the fact, and then they're not asking you to come through for 20 minutes either. They're asking you to spend half a day with them, you know? And it's like, you shouldn't even ask me that. I would never ask somebody else that without leading with the compensation part. Like, what am I going to do to make you come? Especially if you know me well. If you know me well enough, you know that I don't want to come to your thing, you know, for 3 hours. I don't want to come to your 3-hour event.
I don't think they know that. I think they think you think like them. Like,
never.
They're like, I'm a great person. Like, who doesn't want to come to my event?
Right.
I think they think you think similar. So you're like, I would want to come see me. Like, I would, and you're like, not that I don't like you, I just don't want to come see you.
Preface with, oops, my thing is shutting me off here. I preface with, if I'm asking you to come to something of mine and it's hours long, I'm like, hey, we're having this little get together at the house. I know, like, I give all the disclaimers, like, yeah, like, you know me, I probably wouldn't stay, but, you know, like, if you want to come through, hey, we definitely want you to come. I'm just saying, you know how I am. I'd probably be looking for the first excuse to leave after the first hour. I totally get it, but I'm just letting you know what's going on. We'd love you to come through, but if you got to go, you got something else to do, man. Don't,
Right.
but, you know, and people will hit. This is why I get, so this is an extrovert thing. Extroverts get mad at me for saying that. It doesn't sound like you want me to come. No, I totally want you to come. I just know that if it was me, I wouldn't want to stay long. And I'm giving you every out clause you have. I don't expect much. It will come for 20 minutes, bounce. I always got an exit plan before I go somewhere. Always, right? Like, I'm like, okay, how do I leave this event? You know, but if it's something where I'm featured and then I can't really leave until you have me do what I do. So I'm at your mercy too. So it's like, oh my gosh, when am I going to be on? And I don't like being that guy who goes to the event and bounces out. If there's going to be other people there, I want to see the other people. So I feel like captive for hours and hours at those kind of things. And there's never an easy way to say it, I suppose. There's just not an easy way to say it if people don't know you well enough. If they do, this conversation is automatic. And it's not even a conversation. It's like, hey, yeah, you know how I get down. Yeah, like, you know, it's an hour. Sure, I'll come through for an hour. Got you. You know.
It's kind of, yeah. We'll have to talk about it on another episode, but just as we wrap it up, I think that's interesting to me because in some ways, I almost wish people would invite me just to perform because then it's like I have something to do. You know, it's like,
well, yeah,
Like if it's just like, hey, come through.
Here's the thing, Bernard. I'm assuming with you. I think this is true of all introverts. I may be way off. I have like 6 friends in the world. I have like 1,000 associates, right? Like, I know more people than most human beings know, you know, but I don't know them like that, you know.
Right.
And again, when you perform, they always know you better than you know them. And the 6 people that I know, it's totally different. This conversation isn't about those people.
Right.
You know, I mean, the 6 people that are like my friends. Like, I got like no friends. I'm cool with saying that. I got like, you know, I got no friends, you know. And it's not because I'm not like someone that people would want to be a friend with. I think maybe it isn't. It's that there's value in having me come to your party, and I'm cool with that. Right. You know, it's like, oh, am I coming to perform? I don't even need to ask that anymore. I know I am. And if I want to go, you know, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's that gray area, but that's fine. If that person would have invited me under the pretext of that, that's cool. But you can't ask me to stay for 3 to 4 hours. I don't want to be there. And if you knew me better, you would know that's true. So not having many friends always puts it in the gray area where people are like, how good of associates are we? You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, these are my neighbors, right? Like, I know some of them. I've never been to their party. They would never ask me to go to their party. Like, I'm not that dude, you know? But they'd ask me to come by and rap, you know? So if they're having a party, they don't want me to come over. They want me to come over and rap.
You
So
want the rapper.
yes, always. Unless you want me to, or you want me to tutor math to your kid, or your college student or whatever it is, Like I know my value areas, and I'm okay with it, right?
I saw this great meme.
But you're definitely not asking me to come over to paint your house.
I saw this great meme today. It said, I don't know, well, it was a meme. I think it was real. It was like, doctor in China says, those without COVID apparently have no friends. Those who haven't caught COVID have no friends.
That's great.
I was cracking. I was like, yes.
And tell the people in Clubhouse that I have no friends because my battery died, and so I have no more Clubhouse juice. Sorry. But
it shows you still on there.
Oh, does it? Well,
yeah.
I can't turn my screen on, so I don't know what it's doing.
All right. Well, Pro say he doesn't have any friends, so he doesn't have COVID.
This is what I have on my phone. So other phone, that's what I see. Hey, there you are. And so this one actually says battery power is 5%. So I've drained this one all the way down too. But it was well worth it, friend. It was. I'll do an hour and a half of a podcast. Yeah, like that's not a problem.
Right.
At my pool or in my house, right? But
right.
Yeah. You know what? I'd even do our podcast physically somewhere else. But guess what, everyone? We charge to do that.
Yeah, this is a friendship fee, as we talked about the very first episode. It's
Absolutely. Absolutely. Come on over to the clubhouse. And we'll bring the clubhouse to you for a small price. A very manageable price. Yeah.
Right,
you don't have to pull it out of me. It's not like pulling teeth, make it worth the while. We'll all be different.
Pull out your credit card.
Pull out your card.
Pull out your credit card.
Pull out your phone. I mean, actually that's what I don't have. I don't have the ability to accept Google Pay or Apple Pay. I don't have the ability to accept that. I need to update myself because that's the new way to do it. I mean, I PayPal, you can Cash App, but I want to have Google Pay acceptability. I want to have Apple Pay acceptability. That's why I don't have to. Be like, yeah, just put that phone up. Bang, we're good.
I actually thought about that, starting like a friendship service. Like, I will be your friend for a fee. Like, as if I have to listen to you.
that could be illegal, Bernard. That could be illegal.
No, there would be strict parameters. Like, if you want to talk to me about your movie you just watched, I will. Like, no, yeah, because it'll be all like virtual. It's like, oh, you just watched the movie.
I'll be your friend for a price.
Yeah, like you want to stream a movie together? Okay, that's $25. You want to discuss?
It's funny that just caused the hair on the back of my spine to go up because like how repulsed I was by that. There's nothing I'd rather not do than watch a movie with somebody that I don't know. And I'm moderate at best to go in a movie with people I do know. Like
it's like we talked about last time, as when you were talking about the car rental. I was like, I could be the car rental guy if I really just put on the act and was like fully in character. I could probably do it. It's like, hey guy, what's going on? Hey, let me look. What's it going to take to get you in one of these today? Oh yeah, buddy.
Well, all right, check this out. So the Uber driver that dropped me off yesterday, right? He's right outside. He brings me home and he's talking about his job and other stuff. And he's like, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, it's pretty unique. I'm like, I'm just coming back from rapping. And he's like, oh, cool. Like, you're a rapper. I'm like, well, yeah, I'm coming back from rapping. So not like someone who doesn't rap, but my thing's gonna die in 1%. But he got into talking about he's in sales, and I'm like, oh yeah, that is tough because he's saying he's leaving his job, and he's like, yeah, I'm in sales, and so I'm leaving that. I'm like, yeah, man, I don't blame you. I couldn't stand it. He goes, no, I love sales. Sales is great. So I was like, hey, good for you, man.
Well, I was saying like I could do it. Is he out? It froze up. Are you there? Well, I guess his phone died, so I will end the podcast. But yeah, I was saying, if you want to watch a movie, $100 an hour, you want to discuss the movie, that'll be an additional $50 afterwards. Friendship fee. I was trying to come with a free, not free ship, friendship. Friend club. I don't know. I'll come up with it. But yeah, I'll rent out my friendship for a price because that's the only way I'm going to do it is if I'm getting paid. All right, guys, we'll see you next time on Introverse.